NFL Week 13. Eric, my friend, we are already a big portion of the way through this year's NFL season. A couple things that I wanted to mention. When a week like last week happens, usually not the greatest week for you and me because favorites were 12-4 against the spread in week 12. This actually was the first week of 12 or more favorites covering since week 12 of 2017. And in the Super Bowl era, there's never been a week when 13 or more, I think, in a single week. Another thing to monitor, Monday Night Football, unders 13-1 so far this year on the season. And then the kind of big news, I guess, before we get into any specifics, Frank Reich fired. What'd you think about that? Let's get a little reaction on that one.
Someone messaged me, said I have to check out the press conference. I have not checked out the press conference yet. That Tipper, whatever his name is, did.
Man, it's not good.
I really need to check that out. So that's on my list of stuff to do. That's number one. I did something on my stream on Tuesday, and me and Wade, who is my guest, these are the 8 coaching jobs we think are going to be open next year. Okay. Chargers, Raiders, Patriots, Bucks, Panthers, Chicago, Saints, and Commanders. I mean, by far, Panthers. I mean, why would anyone want to go there? You're just going to get a crappy
you don't have your pick. You don't have your pick anymore, and you've got an owner who's fired. Since he's been the owner, all 3 coaches he's fired, he's done it during the season.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to have to overpay somebody a ton and hope that there's just somebody out there who's absolutely in love with Bryce Young and thinks he can fix Young, because they're just not in a good situation. They don't even have their pick.
No pick. Questions on the offensive line. Burns wants traded.
And what makes it even worse, it's not always fair just to compare like this, but Eric, it makes it a lot worse how good Stroud is playing too. Right?
Yeah,
if he was struggling and not playing as well, you maybe wouldn't feel like as bad about it, but you really, or like it was one of these 2 guys and this was the guy. And I'll give you a lot of credit because we previewed all these teams before the season. We talked a lot of news leading into the NFL season. You were never high on Bryce Young. And we're not saying that he's done and he'll never be a competent quarterback in the NFL, but you just were not high on him and what you would have to do to go get him, right? What they had to spend in order to go get him. It cost them an additional pick and this year. So they had to spend a lot of capital on top of more. The wide receiver, who's a good wide receiver.
Yeah, they really went all in and just excuse me, it just backfired on them. Obviously they lost Drew. They got let go of Deuce Staley too, who's highly respected in the league,
and McCown too, right? Who was like a guy that was kind of moving up in a lot of rooms. This is weird.
I just kind of feel it's not going to be the job that people want. Like if I'm a young coach, I'm not going to go there.
Because your guy, for example, Ben Johnson last year, he turned that job down.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you were him, why would you go take that job again this year?
Well, I mean, like out of the jobs I listed, like this is how we ranked them last year. Like these are the 8 we think are going to be free. I have Bears 1, Chargers 2, Commanders 3, Raiders 4, Bucks 5, Patriots 6, Saints 7, Panthers 8.
And the Bears, honestly, because of the picks, because of what you can do. You can start over with your guys right off the bat.
Yep. Herbert, obviously, for the Chargers.
Lockdown. Yep. You got him under contract for a while.
Commanders, you have Howell, who's young, under a rookie deal. You have some pieces defensively on the front with Allen and I'm forgetting the other guy, Payne up front. For the Raiders, I mean, the Raiders, you got Crosby, Devontae Adams, Josh Jacobs. You have some pieces there. Then you look at the Bucks. You're going to have a top pick. You can move off Mayfield. You can get your quarterback. You can kind of start building. You have Godwin, you have White, you could re-sign Evans, you have some pieces. Patriots, I have low just because you're in the division with the Bills, the Dolphins. So that's why I have them low. Saints have some awful contracts. It's going to be hard for them to get
They're
assets
older, man. And you can see on both sides of the line, like in their defense, they just look older and older and older each week.
Yeah, it's just bad. Like, I just don't know what I want. I just don't know. Hypothetically, if I'm a young coach, I don't really want to go there. There's no point in me going there just because this may be my only opportunity to coach. So why would I want to go there?
I agree with you. And I will say, again, you did not like the Frank Reich hire. He's had an interesting career because he's definitely had spots where he succeeded and he did well. But you could see as things started to change in Indy, just in the later years, he had a tough time adjusting and just kind of like sometimes you grow out of it. I don't know, like him, whether or not you thought he was the right call. I didn't like the fact that they fired him right now and not just at the end of the year because again, if you think he's not the right guy, maybe just, okay, let's get rid of him. But if he didn't do anything, if he was a professional and you just didn't like the job that he did, I think you wait till the end of the year and you get rid of him because it's not going to help you or hurt you any in the next few weeks. And he wasn't Urban Meyer. He wasn't Hackett. He was just a bad coach. It wasn't like this team was showing up and they didn't know what they were doing and he didn't understand. I mean, he didn't even know schemes or players. They didn't do well. And honestly, it's probably as much on Bryce Young as it is on Wright. Like, he just has not been successful at all. He's been one of the worst quarterbacks in the league. And Eric, we do have a small sample size. Remember how different this team looked when Andy Dalton was playing? They moved the ball. They scored points.
I really believe if Dalton was a quarterback, they'd have like probably 3 or 4 wins right now.
Absolutely. We saw it in the game when in the times that he played, he moved the ball, scored points, and just had it look like a competent offense. I'm not saying this team is a playoff team or has a winning record or anything, but we just haven't seen the glimpses. Honestly, DeVito's got the second best QBR from a rookie. We've seen small glimpses from all these different guys through the years. We would joke about your buddy Mills from the Texans, and like he had some glimpses here and there. Minshew had like a really good start. We just haven't seen all that much yet from Bryce Young. We'll continue to see how his rookie year goes. Those are just some of the news stories to talk about. We do have 6 teams on the bye this week, and I think this is the last week of buys, right? Right now.
Last week of buys, and I mean,
so,
dude, you haven't got into the biggest story of the day, dude.
Okay.
How somehow, some way, I'm still fighting in circles.
In Survivor.
Somehow, some way, I'm still.
You are alive.
Somehow.
Okay. So what's the thought process this weekend? Do you have something in mind already, or are you?
Right now, I have the Bucks in.
Okay.
I haven't locked it in yet. But, I mean, it's just one of those things where it's just like, looking at this board, that I don't really know where else I can go with confidence. I kind of feel like, to me, that's the only place you can really go with confidence. I've already used the Chiefs. Actually, you know what? I haven't used the Jaguars yet. Maybe I'll use the Jaguars
on Monday. Okay. Well, let's talk it all out. Let's see if anything else, as you get through the analysis in some of these games, anything else kind of pops up as we start with Thursday night football. The Seahawks and the Cowboys, both these teams played on Thanksgiving last week. So it's just a week turnaround for them. No short week. And this is just that crazy stretch of games for the Seahawks where they played the 49ers, the Cowboys, the 49ers again, and then the Eagles. They lost to the Rams right before that stretch. And they could go from a team that was leading the division to a team that's out of playoff contention very quickly. What's scary for us, the Seahawks, Eric, is this is kind of the situation where Dallas has been good all year, beating up on these teams that are just a little bit more talented than them and beating up on them at home. Dallas has scored 114 points in their last 3 games. And honestly, for Dallas, they're like one of those teams that it's going to be just so hard to understand who they really are until it comes the playoffs and until they have to win a big game against the Eagles or the 49ers, or really one of those two teams, because they'll continue to win. They'll get in the playoffs. Dak looks good all the time right now. Like, he's been one of the best graded quarterbacks. He's thrown for 300 plus yards in 4 of his last 5 games, 17 touchdowns, 2 interceptions during that stretch. They had 10 different players catch a pass last week. I really want to play Seattle because they need one of these next couple games coming up. And I know Dallas is the type of team that as soon as we really start buying in on them, they throw in a clunker. But the Seahawks, they had trouble moving the ball last week against the 49ers early. They got a 66-yard kick return on their first possession. They got the ball at the San Francisco 33-yard line, and they could only move the ball 1 yard, and they had to kick a field goal. They went 3 plays negative 1 yard on their second possession. San Francisco scores another touchdown. All of a sudden, by the time they get the ball back the third time, it's 14-3.
Yeah, that was just a weird game.
Is Geno healthy right now? He's better this week.
Better, but I will
this
say
week than last week.
Yeah, he'll full 10 days to rest up. Full week to rest up. Excuse me. So there's an interesting trend this week, and it applies to 3 teams. Teams that lost by 17 points the week before, playing a team that won by 17 points the week before, are 60% against the number. The Seahawks fall into this category. Teams that won by 35 points or more the previous week are 42% ATS.
Yep.
Cowboys, who do the Cowboys have on deck? Cowboys have the Eagles on deck. Just showcase game against the Commanders that was tight, and then the wheels fell off in the third quarter. I really feel that the Commanders shouldn't have punted that ball. Seahawks defense is better than the Commanders. Commanders defense can be passed on. I think Seattle's getting a little bit healthier at the quarterback position. That's going to help. You can attack this Cowboys defense with a lot of intermediate outs away from Bland and in the middle. So I really think this is going to be a big Lockett game, a big Smith-Njigba game. Seahawks, you can obviously rush on them, but here's the thing. Tony Pollard is a guy you want to have 12 carries, 10 to 12 carries max.
He's been one of the more disappointing fantasy guys this year.
So I just feel that with the situational spot and the trends, the Seahawks on the side, I bet the 9. I'll be honest, I probably won't even watch this game, but
I think at over 7.5, I'd be fine on the Seattle side. Between that, like once you get over the 7.5 here, I agree with you. You just feel like Dallas doesn't need to go and blow this team out with Philly on deck next week. You feel like Dallas kind of gets
historically like McCarthy and Dak lose.
Exactly. It's funny because this year they've won all of those games, but it's again to the point where we're all starting to believe in them now. Because as you look around the league and everyone kind of has hiccups, Dallas does just beat up some of these teams they're supposed to beat, but now it's narrative-y. Now it's like, okay, is Dallas a Super Bowl contender again? We have to see him prove it. I'm not laying it with Dallas, no doubt about it. Eric's on the Seattle side. I'm probably there with him as well as we move to Sunday. Arizona at Pittsburgh. So, Pittsburgh, let's give them a lot of credit, right? Fired Matt Canada. They outgained their opponent for the first time this year, and they went over 400 total yards for the first time in 58 games. They had 149 yards in the first quarter. They ended up with 6 plays of 20-plus yards in the game. 4 of them were pass plays. They hit the middle of the field. They targeted Freiermuth quite a bit. He had 9 catches, 120 yards, a couple really nice deep sideline shots from Pickett. They ran for 153 yards. They used both backs. They looked like a real offense. Now, they got to do a better job in the red zone. They were just 1 of 4, but they converted a season-high 7 third downs. Pickett was graded quarterback number 2 on the week. He had 4 big-time throws, 8 different receivers caught a pass, and the defense did a good job putting pressure on Browning, making life difficult for them. They only allowed 11 first downs, stacking the box, forcing Cincinnati to try to throw the ball, only allowed 25 yards rushing in the game. They dominated the time of possession by almost 15 minutes. All that being said, I still think this is too much for this team. This still feels like a little too high for this Pittsburgh team with a wild card Arizona team with Kyler Murray who can make things happen. That game against the Rams was kind of weird. The Cardinals go 12 plays, 75 yards, score a touchdown on their opening drive. Then they don't score again until midway through the fourth quarter. They had a chance to score after a Stafford interception. They had a holding penalty, which negated their 57-yard field goal. They missed a 56-yard field goal later in the game. They allowed the Rams to run all over them, which could spell a problem here if Pittsburgh leans on the run. But this does just feel a little too high for Pittsburgh here. What do you think about this game, Eric?
I took the Cards plus the 5. Tomlin as a favorite, 48% against the number. 3.5 or more, 44.1%. Excuse me. Murray as a dog, 64.7%. Murray as a road dog, 77.8. Murray getting 3.5 or more is 81.8% against the spread. I always like taking Murray on these big dog numbers. Why I mean big dog, I mean a number over 3, just because of his ability to extend plays with his legs. You talked about the Steelers. The issue with them defensively is the slot, and that's where Rondell Moore plays. He is the first read he was the first read 44% of the time. So I really think he's going to target Moore. He's going to target McBride. He's going to look to attack the middle of this Steelers defense. You mentioned their offense producing over 400 yards, but they're playing the Bengals defense, who has kind of struggled this year, hasn't been up to snuff, especially in the back four. Hendricks is banged up, isn't getting to the quarterback, and they only scored 16 points. You know what I mean? Like, it wasn't like it was a successful offensive day. Steelers have a Thursday night game versus the Patriots. Why is this important? We need to monitor which running back is going to get a decrease in production. No, in touches. That's the running back we want to target for props going in. I think it's going to be a heavy Najee day, and then Warren will get more run on Thursday night. That's what they did last time. Obviously, there's some locker room issues going on with the Steelers. This whole
Johnson, right? Yeah,
not getting much effort. I guess they talked to him. He apologized to the team, but that's still there. That's not something that's not going to be going away. Teams didn't know what you were going to get on offense from Sullivan, who was the running backs coach promoted. Now you kind of have an idea. Now you have film on this offense, what to expect. And as much as everyone wants to badmouth the Cardinals, they compete hard. They play hard. Gannon is a good defensive coach. I think he's going to be able to limit the Steelers' attack. It's Kenny Pickett being able to win by a touchdown. I really don't trust that. We talk about luck, turnover aggression, and everything. Steelers have one of the best turnover differentials in the league. They're due for some turnover regression. I just like them more in the slot. I like Murray. I don't trust Kenny Pickett laying these big numbers, plus the issues in the film on Sullivan. I took the Cardinals here plus the 5.5.
Let's keep rolling, Eric. Where do we go next? As we look at DRF Sportsbook, remember, if you're in the state of Iowa, I can flash our little banner right now. Use the promo code FAST. Actually, it's FAST 300 now because we changed that one. Yeah, there we go. It's FAST 300, scrolling across the bottom to give you a $300 match deposit bonus. So you can check that out. Eric, we go Falcons and the Jets. So the Falcons, now, even after struggling for a few weeks, they get the big win over the Saints last week, and now they're actually leading the division. If the playoffs started today, the Falcons are in. Man, Jesse Bates, what a huge free agent acquisition in the offseason. The Saints made it to the red zone 5 times. They were 0-5. 3 times they didn't score a touchdown because of Jesse Bates. He got a pick 6. He created a fumble. And then he stopped a third down, like a single-handedly that would have gotten a first down and given them another set, which was just really, really impressive stuff there. They did a little bit better of a job of getting the ball to some of their playmakers. You know, Robinson still only had 19 touches overall. better than before, but they got Patterson and Algier involved. London had 91 yards receiving. Ritter was fine. He ran the ball a little bit, which was nice. He had 7 carries. And for the Jets, I think you and I were hitting on this, Eric. The Jets and the Patriots are going to kind of figure out the same thing, that you can bench Wilson. The problem is Wilson is better than Boyle. Like, you've seen this with Boyle, right? He was in the Lions for a while. It's just Wilson's not great, but he's better than Boyle. So now the problem is you felt like you had to make a change for the locker room, because the locker room and the defense, and they're starting to get aggravated. Why aren't we making any change? But then you make a change and Boyle is not better, and he's not even as athletic. Like, he can't even move around as well as Wilson can. They had 38 passes, the Jets did, and they had 12 first downs, 159 total yards, 130 yards passing. They couldn't run the ball because now teams will just stack the box against them because they know that Wilson or Boyle or whoever, let's force them to hit a deep shot down the field against us. And they probably can't do that. We'll put a little pressure on them, stack the box. These teams can't run the ball either. So, gosh, I want to play the Jets in here. Can you get there at the +3?
I got there at the +3. This is how I look.
That's the buy-in point, right?
Yeah, at 3 or higher.
Yeah.
Arthur Smith, favorite 33%. Desmond Ridder, favorite 29%. I just kind of feel like it's a good spot to fade the Falcons, because that division is going to come down to who has the best record in the division. They just beat the Buccaneers. Now they have 2 divisional games on deck after this. This is the best defense that Ridder has played against. Jets are 4 DVOA. The only other time they played a top 10 DVOA is when they played the Jacksonville Jaguars. In that game, Ridder, 19 of 31, 191 yards through 2 INTs, and the Falcons only put up 7 points. Also, look at who the Jets have played. Now you're playing Desmond Ridder. You're going from playing Herbert, Josh Allen, and I'm not the biggest Tua guy, but Tua is better. Tua is better than Desmond Ridder. So you're getting a huge drop down in quarterback competition, or you know what I mean? A huge drop off in quarterback play. And for whatever reason, Smith won't ride Robinson. He will not just give the ball to Bijan Robinson and ride him. It is criminal that Cordell Patterson is getting handoffs at this stage of the season and them actually fighting for a playoff spot. Home dogs, when the total is 35 or less, 55% ATS. Jets played a tight first half against the Finns, and there was that 100-yard pick 6 Hail Mary. Floodgates opened up for that. I really think Bryce Hall is going to be able to run the ball. Grady Jack isn't their best run stopper, so I think they're going to have success running the ball, even if they stack the box. Plus, I can't live in a world where Desmond Ridder is laying 3 points on the road and I am not fading him. To me, you have to take the bets here plus the 3.
Yeah, and my only concern is just I would like this if this was Wilson, actually. But I don't think they're going to go back to Wilson right now. I think he's going to stick. Like, I feel like it's the same thing with the Patriots, where it's like Mac Jones is your better option. It's not like he's great, but of those guys, we saw Zappe wasn't very good either. It's just kind of funny.
Taking 13 reps at practice this week.
It's going to be Zappe and Cunningham, I've heard, because it seemed like there's no Jones reps at all. I think he's out of the rotation. Like, I think it's Zappe and then Cunningham backing him up, and like some packages for Cunningham. I don't know if you saw that tweet that said Zappe's got a big smirk on his face and said, he made a comment. So he's confident. He's ready to rock and roll. Definitely not laying it with the Falcons. Not sure if I can get there with the Jets. 3 is the buy-in point for Eric. So that I would absolutely be at 3 and over. I'd be okay with it. Still a little tough when you see what we've gotten from Boyle. Let's go Broncos at the Texans. Eric, if we would have said this was a huge game with playoff implications at the beginning of the year, I don't think many people would have believed us. But here we are, week 13. This is a massive game with playoff implications for these two teams who are battling now for a wild card spot. Texans, I guess, still maybe have an outside shot at the division, but the Jags would need to lose some games that they have some soft schedule ahead. So for the Broncos, they have won 5 in a row. In their last 4 games, they have 15 takeaways. And those 15 takeaways have given them an expected points of 60. So 12 points per game they've had added based on turnover luck and the turnovers, which is just something that's a little bit fluky. Give them a ton of credit. They've been playing way better, but the ball's been bouncing their way. They've almost allowed 20 fewer points per game in their last 6 games than they did in their first 5 games when they were allowing 36.2 points per game. It would be the biggest improvement in points per game in history from your first 5 to the rest of the season. They've yards allowed has gone down each of the 5 weeks following the Miami game. Points allowed dropped each of the 4 weeks following the Miami game. And they've got victories against the Browns and the Bills, which could help them in the playoff race, if they need some tiebreaker seeding help. They made some adjustments. They were struggling against the run early. It was more that the Browns just stopped running and didn't run as much, and they tried to pass the ball a little bit more. They do play a Texans team, though, that doesn't turn the ball over a whole lot. The Texans are 5th best in the league. They're only averaging 1 takeaway or 1 giveaway a game. So if the Broncos have been leaning on takeaways and now they play this team that's not turning the ball over a ton, I don't know if they'll be able to quite capitalize like they have been. But this number's a little tricky to me because, Houston played pretty well last week against Jacksonville. They were down 10. A couple weird decisions. It was 3rd and 1 when they were down by 10 at the 46-yard line, and they took 2 deep shots in a row instead of just trying to pick up the first down and then get another set and keep moving the ball, especially when you're down 10 and you need a couple scores. And then later in the game, just some sloppy stuff. They had 12 men on the field or a punt return, and they had to burn a timeout that they didn't have for their big scoring drive. And then the game-tying field goal doinked off the bottom of the crossbar. So what do we do in this spot with this number, Eric?
Do you remember when the Broncos lost 70-20 and they're 0-3 and everyone said their season was over? Since then, 6-2, only giving up 19.8 points per game. In that 5-game winning streak they're on, 16 points. Russell Wilson has only thrown over 200 yards once during that time. They're leaning on Javonte Williams and playing good defense. Now, the thing is this. Will they be able to run the ball on the Texans? That's what it all comes down to. Texans defensive front has been playing better. I really think there's value on Will Anderson still to win Defensive Rookie of the Year. Stroud, 0-4 in his career. No small sample size as a favorite. Wilson, 67% against the spread as a dog. A lot of those were with Seattle, though. 8-4 is a time with the Broncos. Texans are 26 DVOA defending the pass. I think Wilson is going to be able to throw on them. And that's my worry, laying this number that's over 3. This kind of has backdoor written all over it, with the Texans struggling to defend the pass. Teams that are a dog on a 5-game winning streak, 55% ATS. As a road dog, 57% ATS. Also, I really think one of the big things that isn't being talked about right now, Texans don't have a field goal kicker. They cut Amendola. Do you know who they signed? I didn't get a press thing who they signed, but right now, if this comes down to a field goal, is he going to be able to make a kick, whoever he is? I don't know. I don't know. The number to me just sounds I don't know what to do here, man. If I'm just being honest, the Texans are working out Brett Meyer and Taylor Rusilindo. Brett Meyer, who missed 4 extra points in the Cowboys playoff game. So, there's just, can you trust a team with no field goal kicker, a young quarterback, a young coaching staff that's exceeding expectations to defeat the highest team in the league that's just playing good defense and running the ball? I don't know. I will say this, though. I think the play in this game, though, is first half under, just because of how well the Broncos defense is playing. And I feel this is an elimination game for the playoffs. I feel whoever wins this game is going to get in.
Yeah, I'm staying away from this one. Not the real strong opinion here as we move to your Lions at the Saints. So Lions got beat up on Thanksgiving, and now for a few weeks, the defense has been struggling, and now it's sort of a couple of the guys who are playing a little over their head early in the year coming back down. Now defenses are really focusing in on Hutchinson. He's having a tough time getting as much of a burst. They don't have that other guy on the other side of the defense like you were always sort of hoping for. But they still have a pretty favorable schedule down the stretch. And if they handle their business, they'll get a home playoff game. They'll win the division. They could still have a really nice run here. They've just got a couple games where they've not played well. They get the few extra days off now. They're a 4-point favorite on the road here. The one question that I had, just kind of watching back that game from Thanksgiving, is not even the defense, because the Lions defense has gotten shredded here and there throughout the year. It's played well in games, but it's gotten shredded. So it wouldn't have been shocking to me to see the Lions give up some points. It's just, why was Goff pressured so much? 52% of the time, the offensive line, Eric, really disappointed me in that game, because that's usually one of the strengths for this team over the last couple of years.
Yeah, I mean, I really think the big thing is Jackson is just insane. Jackson is their left guard next to Taylor Decker. Him not being there, and then also Vitai's not there. So they have two guards that aren't our backups playing right now. And that's kind of allowing some internal pressure to get home to Goff. You mentioned their defense. Since week 5, they EPA worst defense in the league. The last 3 games, the Lions are giving up 34 points. The injuries to Jackson and Vaitai are just killing the interior of this offensive line. Flip side with the Saints, did you see this? Like, who are the Saints playing at wide receiver? Bowden, A.T. Perry. I mean, they're
Olave and Thomas are both out. Olave has
a concussion. This is
so he's not going to be.
I doubt he's going to play. Thomas is on the IR. And the weakness of this Detroit defense is you can throw on them. They've been awful. They've been bleeding production in the passing game. But you have Derek Carr, who can't throw the ball down the field. So it's a lot of checkdowns to Kamara. So I just don't know if the Saints can take advantage of the area that the Lions are weakness at. You mentioned you'd like the Jets more if Wilson was playing. I'd actually like the Saints more if Jameis Winston was playing, just because then you have someone with an arm that will take some deep shots and exploit the holes of this Lions defense. Saints are 22 DVOA against the run. This Lions, at the end of the day, it's a ground-based attack. They're going to be looking to ride Montgomery and ride Gibbs. But right now, for me, I don't trust either one of these teams. This is going to be a pure stay away for me. Maybe I'll put some props on Bowden. Bowden from the Saints. He was the high draft pick from Kentucky that was drafted to the Raiders, then got traded. He got some targets. He didn't do anything for reduction, but they were at least looking his way. I'll kind of look at his props. But other than that, in terms of this game, I want nothing to do with it.
Here's the Saints' last 32 possessions. They've scored 3 touchdowns, and those touchdowns came on 2 touchdown passes from Jameis Winston when Carr was hurt, and 1 touchdown pass from Taysom Hill when Carr was on the sideline. They had 0 touchdowns and 5 red zone trips last week. They turned the ball over twice inside the 10-yard line. I don't trust them. I think they're still better than they played offensively last week. Defense, like you said, they're not great right now. They've got holes defensively. I still think they're a little bit better than that bad. And offensively, they can be a lot cleaner. They had the weird fake punt. That was just a bad decision where they got way too aggressive there. So, I mean, I'm not playing it, but I would lean Lions. I'm just not going to lay the 4 on the road. This is not a smart thing to do here. So likely stay aways for both of us as we move to Colts and the Titans. Colts at Titans. Eric, I'm going to tell you again. The Titans are now undefeated in their 4 home games in their stadium, and all of their losses have come outside of their home stadium. They averaged 24.7 points at home, 11 points outside of their home stadium. 4 of their final 6 games are at home. They got up 17-3 last week, and then they just did nothing in the second half. They were just coasting. They punted on all 4 of their second half possessions before the end of game possession when they just kneeled. It wasn't like they were impressive offensively. They didn't need to because they got up early and their defense was just not allowing Carolina to do anything. Carolina didn't cross midfield on their final 4 possessions of the game. It only had 260 total yards. Honestly, there were 4 defensive penalties in the secondary that the Titans caused that gave automatic first downs to Carolina. Otherwise, it probably would have been even uglier there. And just stealing a line from you, my friend, Gardner Minshew favored on the road here at Tennessee, even by small margin. This to me feels like a spot to take the team that's been really good at home. The Colts are going to be without Taylor now. I know Moss is there. He may be a play if you're looking at DFS type, but overall, obviously not having Taylor hurts their team, and it's just one less option for them. So, yeah, I think the Titans at home here getting plus money. +1 or basically -104 if you're playing the money line here on DRF Sportsbook. That's the side I'm on here, Eric. How about you?
Yeah, I got the Titans here. I got it 2. Minshew 48% against the number just in his career. Vrabel 57% as a dog, 63% as a home dog. JT is out, so you're trusting Zach Moss to be running against the best defensive front against the run in the league. The way you beat this team is through the air. Do you really trust Minshew to step up and make those throws in the air? Colts have some issues on the outside defending it. We saw Mike Evans had an absolutely huge game. I think this is going to be a huge DeAndre Hopkins game. It's going to allow Will Levis to get in some rhythm, looking to throw him. Levis has looked better and better. Spears is starting to get a little bit more explosive. Henry historically has run well against this Colts defense. I think they're going to be able to lean on Henry. I think Levis is going to be able to make the throws, and I just don't think Colts are the secondary guys to stop Hopkins, and I think Simmons and company is going to be able to get to Minshew and make him uncomfortable. So I'm on the Titans.
We go to the Chargers at the Patriots. Chargers are a 6-point favorite here on the road in New England. So the Chargers, they had a field goal drive on their opening possession against the Ravens. Then on the next 7 possessions, 6 of the drives went 22 or fewer yards. And the one that did go longer, it was a strip sack in the red zone for a turnover. They had 4 turnovers in the game, and it just crushed their chances of winning. And again, it was their best players. Allen, fumble. Eckler, fumble. Herbert, fumble and interception. They're down by 3. They get the ball back with a chance to tie or win the game. 2 minutes and 57 seconds left to go. They can only get it to the Baltimore 46. And then they actually have a chance to stop Baltimore and even get the ball back again. And they allow a garbage time touchdown, which not garbage time if you're someone who backed the Chargers in there at +3.5. But
yeah, that was brutal. Like, honestly,
yeah. That's a bad beat. When people talk about bad beats, that's one where you were always covering. You were covering with a chance to win also, and it's just Baltimore's not trying to score right there. They're just trying to run out the clock and just barely pick up a first down. Most of the time, if guys do, they slide down and don't even get into the end zone.
Yeah.
So that was just ugly.
And it's just, look, he should have went down. It is what it is. In terms of this game, there's this old saying that says the sports books are not your friends. Doesn't it seem like taking New England here is just too easy? Doesn't it seem like taking the 6 is the way to go? But when it's this easy, I don't want anything to do with it. Did you know the Patriots are the first team to lose back-to-back games while allowing 10 points or less?
So this year, teams are 49-2 when they've allowed 10 or fewer points, which means the Patriots are 1-2, and the rest of the league is 48-0.
Jesus.
When they've allowed 10 points.
It's just absolutely insane. You can run on the Chargers. I think it's going to be a big Stevenson week. I think they're going to lean on that run game. Maybe Ezekiel Elliott could be a sleeper. My buy-in point for this would be 7. But look, you're rolling with Zappy, who was great in college, but in the pros, he really hasn't looked that good. How much of the Chargers going to fight? I mean, their season kind of looks over right now. It's going to take some dramatically weird stuff for them to make the playoffs. Keenan Allen is having a remarkable. I've never seen a player have a good season like Keenan Allen, and it just seemed worthless. If that makes sense,
I
you
know.
know what I mean? It's just completely wasted. Eckler,
Third straight game with 10 catches. And it's just him, though. They have no other playmakers. They're not getting the same from Eckler. Williams is hurt. Johnson's been nothing. And it's just Allen and nobody else.
And then for me, I watch Eckler. He only tries inside the 10. Like as soon as he gets hit before the 10, he just falls down.
He's a little hurt, and the contract stuff messed with him too.
He's trying to score a touchdown. Patriots, both these teams to me just are kind of teams are just trying to get the season done. Maybe I'll look to the under here. But in terms of side, I really want to. This was the hardest game for me to do anything with, just because the number seems too high, so it takes me to the Patriots. But then I'm like, this just seems too easy, so I can't. You know what I mean? So I'm just stepping
keep
back.
in mind that last week with the 12-4 favorites, it doesn't always happen the next week, but we're gonna get a big dog run coming up one of the next few weeks, right?
Well, that's the thing. Like right now, I was looking at it. This is the best week of quote unquote public sides, best season.
Yeah,
we're only 12 weeks in, and when you look at the next best season, this season is more than 2 times better than the second best season. If that makes sense. Yeah, it's just absolutely unheard of. These like chalky public favorites that are covering. So I don't know. I'm just gonna sit this out. Just this seems like way too easy to take the Patriots, and I can't get there.
They missed a 35-yard field goal and they had a chance to tie the game last week. The Patriots. The whole thing about Belichick used to be him against rookie quarterbacks. They played an undrafted rookie quarterback, DeVito, and lost to him. They had more total yards, more first downs. They won the time of possession by almost 9 minutes. Mac played the first half. He was bad. Zappy played the second half. He was bad.
He's let him down on a great drive. You know what I mean? Like that.
Right after the first drive was great. It looked good. Okay. I was like, oh, sure. And then they almost threw the same exact interception. It was like the same type of play. They had 0 big time throws put together and 5 turnover worthy plays. If you were looking at Pro Football Focus grades, there were 34 quarterbacks that were graded this week that took snaps, and they were ranked 33 and 34, the two of them to get individually. They were both the 2 single worst quarterbacks. Neither completed in a pass of more than 8 air yards. They did run the ball, which I like to see. And for a team that's bad, like they can run the ball and they can stop the run. I'll probably if this stays at 6, I'll get there. And if I'm definitely hoping for it to get up to 7, but I'll probably get in on this one too. How about this one though? 4th game this year when they've had 7 points or fewer. Tom Brady had 283 starts. They had 5 times when they scored 7 or fewer, and they've done it 4 times this year alone through 11 games. The Commanders are a 9.5 point dog. Oh, wow. Did that Patriots game just move right there, Eric? Look, we just saw it at 6. Look at what it moved down to right here on DRF. 4.5. Like as we have it up. That thing took a big hit right there. As we go, Dolphins at the Commanders, and the Commanders are a 9.5 point home underdog in this game. Their defense has been getting absolutely torched lately. They allowed 8.6 yards per play to Dallas, and Dallas scored 45 points on 9 drives. After Dallas punted on their first possession of the third, Washington was only down by 10, and they're driving. It was 3rd and 1 at the Dallas 39. And they couldn't pick up a first down on 3rd or 4th down. They turned it over on downs, and it felt like that was sort of a spot for them to get down either by 7 or 3, kick a field goal, any kind of a score there, and you're only down 1, and you're in the game. After that, I think Dallas punted on their next possession, but then the next time they got it, they scored a touchdown, and then it was just the floodgates opened up. And Bland, man, First player ever with 5 pick sixes. He had another one. That was just incredible. For the Dolphins, they were better on third down last week. It had been a problem for them. They finished 11 of 16, but they turned the ball over 3 times. They're now 24th in the league, averaging 1.7 giveaways per game. They've turned the ball over 2+ times this year against the Giants, the Chargers, the Bills, and the Patriots. And in the game against the Chiefs, that turnover was the reason they lost the game. So these turnovers have been impacting them. And now you've got Phillips, their best or second best defensive player, who's out with an ACL injury. He was their co-leader in sacks. So, Hill's great, and Mostert's had a really good year, and he has 3 straight games with 80+ yards. This feels it's got to be like the Commander spot here, right? Taking this big dog at home.
I got the Commanders here +10. I think the big thing we need to realize is it's December, and Miami's traveling up north to the East Coast. Looking at the weather, it's going to be rainy, 10-mile-per-hour wind, and in the 40s. What is that going to do? That's going to neglect the speed that this Dolphins team has with Hill, Waddle, and company. I mentioned that 17-point trend before, teams that won by 17 playing a team that lost by 17. Teams that lost by 17 are 60% against the number. Teams that lost by 35 points or more, 63%. As a dog, 67%. As a home dog, 67.4%. Since 2005, teams laying 9 or more on the road are 42% ATS. I looked at Tua's splits at home versus the road. Completion percentage down. He has less TDs, more INTs, and he has more fumbles. So he has more overall turnovers on the road, and he's not being as productive playing away from Miami. I really feel this weather is going to be playing a big part in this. And just looking at the history of the Fangio defenses, the one thing they really tend to struggle with is when they play deep mobile quarterbacks. And I know Howell's having a big year throwing the ball, but he is a mobile quarterback that
especially if it's raining, right? And the weather's bad.
Yep. I really feel that he is going to be able to extend plays and take advantage of these holes that the Dolphins defense does have. And it was a 10-6 game. And then that 100-yard INT return off the Hail Mary happened. That game was so fluky against the Jets. I think this Commanders team is still kind of fighting for something.
Yeah.
Juan Rivera as a dog, great. He's close to 60% are against the spread against it. And it's hard for me. Like, if this game was in Miami, I would definitely lean the Dolphins here. But playing the Northeast, I'll definitely take the Commanders here. I got a 10. Anything over 9 I like.
Yep, I'm agreeing with you too. I'm on the Commanders side here. We got the Carolina Panthers coming off the fired coach. Can they get the fired coach bump here? I mean, they didn't get to more than 14 points in November. They scored 15 or fewer, 5 games in a row, and 7 times in 11 games. They had, different coaches call the plays. Frank Reich did for a little while. They're currently 30th in total offense, 30th in passing yards per game. Young ranks 29th in the league in QBR. He's tied for 5th most in history with 40 sacks through a player's first 10 games. This is already going to be their 6th straight losing season. And honestly, that was the shortest NFL head coaching job in 40 years. Shorter than Urban Meyer, shorter than Hackett. They got rid of...
Oh my God, it was shorter than Meyer?
Yeah. Yeah.
Jeez.
It was shorter by like 2 weeks. And even Hackett, both. That's what I was saying. When you put it in that perspective, it's like he was just a bad coach, right? Like, it was a bad decision to make him the coach, but he didn't embarrass you, right? He didn't do things like that. He just didn't do a good job connecting, and maybe you made the wrong decision with a quarterback. But, man, it was like he was less – and he's been fired now in back-to-back years. I think he's the first coach ever to be fired in back-to-back seasons. So –
but with those contracts, I mean, he's going to be sitting.
He's going to be chilling, man. It's not like he's going to be struggling for money. This team lost 2 offensive linemen during the game to injuries too, and they didn't even have a great offensive line when they were fully healthy, or a very talented roster when they were fully healthy. And right now they're without a couple cornerbacks, 5 offensive linemen banged up, a tight end, a wide receiver, safety, all were out or injured in that game last week. So obviously it's an ugly spot and Carolina hasn't looked good, but did they get that? Did they get up for this game? And should Tampa, with what we've seen from them, be favored by 5.5 really over anyone? Because their offense is up and down. They're streaky. Baker last week, it was like a typical Baker game. He made some plays. He had 2 big time throws. He also had a turnover worthy play. He kind of kept them in the game. And then he like takes him out of the game with a bad interception. He got hurt. And then Trask came in. Trask threw 1 pass. It was an absolute dart that was incomplete. It was just hilarious because it was like, what the hell was that? It reminded me of the Rookie of the Year when he just throws the dart back from center field and everyone was just like, who the hell threw that thing? You know, that was sort of the moment there. They actually did run the ball last week though, even though they've been one of the worst teams the last few years running the ball. Their defense hasn't been as good. They're just, them and the Saints both kind of feel like they need a reset, right? Just sort of like they've got like some of these older personnel from some teams of theirs that had success a few years ago. And they need to get like a young quarterback or figure out who their guy is and try to build around them, or their coach. Like, I don't feel like they've got the right staff and the right head coaches either. I mean, can we play the Panthers here, Eric?
I did, and I hate myself for doing it.
I'm doing it too.
You got the bump. You mentioned the coach bump. It's like 54%. It's right at that break-even point. Bulls is a favorite, 47% against the number. Mayfield is a favorite, 35.1% against the number. But I really feel that this opens up the back door. I think that this is going to be a late touchdown by the Panthers that get this cover. Let's take Winfield out of the mix. Neal, safety, PFF graded 85 out of 88. These are the Bucs starting DBs. They have a couple people who are out with injury. You have McCollum, 110 out of 120. Ism, 89 out of 120. Davis, 100 out of 120. These are some bottom tier back 4 guys that I think Mingo is going to be. I think Mingo has a great matchup. I think Thielen has a great matchup. I think Young is going to be able to throw the ball. The thing I really liked when Wright wasn't calling the plays that they were doing is they were using a lot of motion. And why is motion important? It gives away if it's zone or man for a quarterback. And when you have a young quarterback, that is so important. I think that's going to be huge for him. Caldwell is becoming more involved. Jim Caldwell, former coach of the Lions, former coach of the Colts. Great offensive mind. I think he's going to put Young in a chance to succeed. Since 2005, road divisional dogs, 649 wins, 561 losses. Last 5 years, 57% ATS. I just think the trends and the spot are telling us that we need to take the Panthers here.
Bryce Young, baby.
Who are the Bucs to be laying this many
This is
points?
too much. This is too much. It should be like a field goal-ish, 3.5.
I mentioned Caldwell, and if this comment comes off wrong, I'm sorry. I think Caldwell's a great coach. I think he got a raw deal. I think the Bears should have hired him, but someone that's constantly been passed over for a head coaching job unjustly, like a Caldwell, that's a coach like that. And I think he'd be great. I think he'd help Young. I'm not a big Bryce Young guy, but I think he would put Young in a situation to succeed. I think a coach that has been passed over unjustly, like a Caldwell, I think that's who the Panthers are going to end up getting.
Yeah, I can see that, especially if he has a little bit of success here with them and just seems like he has some good chemistry with Young. Mainly if Young likes
someone else like that, someone that has gotten
no, that's the guy. That's the type, exactly like you're saying.
Yeah.
It's someone who they don't need it, right? But they're not going to get a bunch of other chances. You know, like there are guys that have been around and it's like a sort of safer, but he would honestly, I think they would be lucky to get him.
Oh,
right?
100%.
Like, I think they would be lucky to get him because I agree with you. I think he's a really good coach. Couple more games to discuss for week 13. Eric, I'm going to be attending my first live NFL football game this week on Sunday. Rams playing the Browns. My buddy Don is from Cleveland. He's got season tickets to the Browns, so he goes to all their games. Huge Browns fan, huge Ohio State fan. He came out here. We've had this planned out for like months with me and a bunch of my buddies when we saw this game on the schedule. So we'll be out there tailgating. By the time this game starts, I'll probably be out of it, so I probably won't really be knowing what a hell of a lot what's going on. But man, the Rams are favored 3.5. This actually moved. This was like a little bit higher, but the Cleveland quarterback situation still up in the air. But it looks like it's going to be the combo of old PJ Walker and Footsteps Falco, Shane Footsteps Falco from the replacement.
I think the move was because of Garrett.
Garrett
arm sleeve. It didn't look like he was going to be able to play, but now it's looking like he's trending in the right thing. And that's just a big thing because there's one quarterback I know the best in the NFL, and that's Matt Stafford. And the one thing that Stafford has struggled with throughout his whole career is pressure. With Garrett being there along with Smith, they're going to be able to get pressure, disrupt Stafford, make him uncomfortable. Rams are 23 DVOA against the run. What does that mean? The Browns team that is going to be rolling out there with more than likely Flacco, DTR could play if he gets out of the concussion protocol. But even if it's him, this is going to be turnaround handoff Ford, turnaround handoff Hunt, jet sweep Elijah Moore. This is going to be a run-based attack. And if the Browns are able to consistently average over 4 yards a rush, eat 7 to 8 minutes off the clock, this is their game script of winning this game. And I think they're going to be able to do it. I think they're going to be able to cover as well. And we've seen this, the zone blocking scheme that Stefanski runs is completely different than what Shanahan runs. And we've seen this when Lamar goes and plays the NFC, how he's perfect ATS. With the offensive system, the run system that Stefanski runs, it's the same concept. He is 13-4 overall against the number against NFC teams. And I really feel it's because no one in the NFC is running the zone running scheme that Stefanski runs. He is, as a dog, he's 7-0. As a road dog, he's 5-0. He just historically covers these numbers against the NFC. Cup is not 100%. If Cup can't go, then you're going to be able to get the coverage over to Puka. Kyron Williams, Browns are one of the better teams against the run. I don't think Kyron Williams is going to have much success running the ball, which is going to put more pressure on Stafford to throw the ball with pressure in his face. And I mentioned just 17-point trend. This is another one of those 17-point trends that's 60% against the number when a team that lost by 17 plays a team that's winning by 17. I just like this Browns defense, and I think they have the best player on the field in Myles Garrett, and I think he's going to make life hard for Matt Stafford, and I'll take the Browns here. I got him at +3.5.
See, I'm gonna have to wait till as long as possible with this one because initially, right off the bat, when I saw this come out, my first thought was like, absolutely, I'm playing the Browns. I gotta make sure all these guys are as healthy as possible because they did have, like, if Garrett is not out there, I think it's completely different. I think their defense is not bad, but they're mortal. And I think the Rams would be able to, without all the pressure on Stafford, move the ball. And honestly, what scares me about this game, just from both sides, like you said, if Garrett's in there, just the pressure and how quickly it could be trouble for Stafford. And Kupp does not look great. He's had 48 yards or less and 4 catches or less in every game since week 6. He was awesome the first 2 games of the year. His last 5 games, he has not caught 5 passes or hit 50 yards in any of those games. I did like to see that they ran the ball, so that could maybe take a little bit of pressure off of Stafford. I'm not laying this with the Rams, no doubt about it. I got to wait a little closer to game time to see, because with Cooper and the ribs and then Garrett overall, if we feel good about their health coming in, I think the Browns is the right spot in here. But man, I got to say, for the Rams, they probably look up at their schedule right now and feel like they have a legitimate chance to take care of business because, hey, you're favored by 3.5 in this game playing against what's either going to be like a third or fourth string quarterback, guy that's either not played at all this year or PJ who's not been great and you just never really know what you're going to get. Following that, they go at Baltimore, which is going to be a tough game. But then they come home, they have Washington and New Orleans at home, and they play a game at the Giants. There's probably 4 between this Cleveland game, Washington, New Orleans, at the Giants. That's 4 winnable games for them. I'm not saying they win those games, but those are games on their schedule they look at and say, hey, we got a shot to win that game. The other 2 at Baltimore and San Francisco, those are tougher games. This team goes 4-2. They're right there, right? They're right in the mix for an NFC wildcard spot because they're 5-6 right now. So they got a lot to play for. Again, this one's funny in that I wouldn't have told you that both of these teams are actually playing for a playoff spot at this point of the year. And they are. This is a big game for both of these teams if they want to try to stay alive. Cleveland cannot free fall right now. They got such good positioning after stacking some wins early in the year. They got to just get some competent quarterback play, lean on the run. If Garrett's in there, they'll be pretty tough. Let's see what the injuries look like come Sunday. We move next to big game of the week. How about this one? The 49ers are favored by 3 on the road at Philly. So the Eagles have had the best record in the NFL for 31 straight weeks. They've been down double digits 4 times this year and come back to win all 4 of those. They're actually the first team since 1960 to be outgained by 90 yards 4 times and win all 4 of those games. Hurts has led them to 8 consecutive games when trailing by double digits and 14 straight wins against winning teams. When tied in a game or trailing, these are Hurts' stats. 71% completion percentage, 1,710 yards, 14 touchdowns, 1 interception, league-leading 114.4 rating. In the second half of games, when trailing, he's completed 67% of his passes, 10 touchdowns, no interceptions, and a 136 passer rating. They're down by 10 after a 3-and-out to start the second half. Buffalo missed a field goal. Eagles get the ball. They score touchdown, 3 straight drives. They kick a field goal. They ended up scoring on 4 of their final 5 drives, and I believe they scored 31 points on their final 6 drives. Lane Johnson was hurt, so that hurt their chances to run the ball, and he's a major factor in this game. Fletcher Cox also got hurt in that game. Man, the Eagles have been one of those teams, Eric, that's like winning a few games that they shouldn't have. They're not a bad fluky team like the Vikings were last year. They should probably just have like 3 losses instead of 1, something like that. It is very strange to see them an actual full 3 home dog against the 49ers. Man, this is one of those that you look at too and say, how do you not play the Eagles, right?
I mean, I look at it like this. Like, I talked about this on my stream. I actually do think the Eagles are this year's Vikings. There just seems to be a team that gets every single bounce and just winning these games. They should.
Well, here's the difference. What I'll say is they've gotten the bounces, but overall, the Eagles are probably they're a top 10 team in the league this year based on their metrics and stuff. The Vikings were they were like a bottom 10. So the Eagles would be a playoff. I don't think they would be a bad team. They are getting lucky. They're getting all the bounces. That's what just scares the hell out of me about this spot, because you feel like the game is coming for the Eagles sometime where it sort of all comes together. That being said, they shouldn't be a 3-point home dog to really anybody in the league, I don't think.
I mean, looking at the Eagles, when you look at their game against the Bills, James Cook dropped TD pass. Gabe Davis not looking up on the QB choice route. Bass missed 2 field goals. They're outgained by 100 yards. Against the Chiefs, the Kelsey red zone turnover. MVS dropped TD, again being outgained by 100 yards. against the Cowboys, Dak stepping out of bounds. If that doesn't step out of bounds there, and it was by like, that was a review that took forever in that game. They couldn't really tell. Then they said he stepped out. Cowboys kick a field goal. They win that game against the Commanders. They needed a 21-point fourth quarter to win that game. And that was due to Howell and like a couple turnovers. Again, outgained by 100 yards. Eagles, in the last 12 games, they've been down by 10. Oh, sorry. The last 4 times the Eagles have been down by 10 or more, they have come back and won. So they're 4-0. The rest of the NFL in that time frame, 72 and 308. I just think the Eagles are running well here. This number opened at San Francisco getting 2.5, and I wanted to bet it. And then right away it was hammered where San Francisco was laying 1. Now it's all the way up to 3. I think this number has moved way too much. I think if you are going to bet it, you are going to bet the Eagles. But the main thing is Lane Johnson. If Lane Johnson's not there, you can't bet the Eagles in my thing just because of the pass rush that the 49ers have. And when you look at the Eagles defense, where do they struggle defending? They struggle defending the tight end and they struggle defending the slot. That's Kittle and that's Debo.
Their defense was on the field for 90 plays last week against the Bills. The 49ers got the 3 extra days. Also, like everything in this spot is the spot for the 49ers. But I don't like, I can't lay the 3 with the 49ers. I'm not going to be surprised if they win this game by double digits just because it's a bad spot for Philly. They've had this murderer's row of a schedule too, where they've played good team, 3 in a row. Like we said, a couple games where like they could have lost any of these games. Again, I feel slightly different about it with Philly than I did with Minnesota last year because I know this is a good team and they were a good team last year and overall they have a good foundation. So it's not like this bad team that's not doing anything. And they did score and they do turn it on in the fourth. They just feel like a team that plays with their food a ton. I don't think that's going to work here, but I'm staying away from it. To me, it's so shocking that Philly is a 3-point dog. And if this does get to 3.5, I think just by principle, I have no choice but to play Philly at that. But I think San Francisco probably wins this game pretty easily. And then I'm ready to bet against them. And maybe we can actually, if you liked Philly somewhere, you might be able to get some value on them. But I would expect San Francisco to play really well in this game. And then everybody say they're the team to beat. There's no way they're going to lose. And then we play against them next week.
And then also another way to do it is if you think the Cowboys are going to beat the Seahawks and then you think the 49ers are going to beat the Eagles, the Cowboys
to the division.
They're plus 650 to win the division. That's the way you could play it here. Just kind of a different way of thinking about it. But in terms of bet, I did nothing in this game.
Yeah, because I initially I've been wanting to play against the Eagles. Unfortunately, like there's no value in playing against them this week. This is just not the spot to play against them when they're a 3-point dog at home.
I was hoping I was pissed off. I missed that San Francisco.
And like the pick 'em or San Francisco getting some plus money there because this is just a game you feel like they're going to be ready for. They're going to play really well. And we move to Sunday Night Football. We've got the Chiefs at the Packers, and the Packers have been playing some very good football lately. That's the only thing I will say for a lot of the folks that are just sort of piling on the Lions after that game last week. The Packers have quietly been playing well, and their offense has been playing well. Love looked good. They've won 3 of their last 4. The Packers scored 20 points in the first quarter, and then they just coasted the rest of the game. First play of the game, 53-yard pass to Watson, and then 5 plays, 75 yards, and a touchdown. Love was 3 for 3 on the opening drive, and he was under pressure 45% of the time. He graded quarterback number 3 on the week. He was number 1 based on a DYAR. In the red zone, he completed all 5 of his passes for 49 yards and 3 touchdowns. And you know what? The Packers did a great job putting pressure on Goff more than 50% of the time. Gary was a beast. They did have their rookie kicker miss an extra point for the 3rd straight game. Just something to monitor if they're going to be in close games. And this is another team that's got an outside shot to make a playoff bid right now, the Packers. They're a 6-point favorite at home here. The Chiefs, last week, they did the opposite of what they've been doing. A lot of this year, they haven't been scoring in the second half. Last week, they were down early. Raiders get up 14-0 on them. And then in the first 2 drives, they have 13 yards. Following that, 71 yards, a touchdown, 79 yards, touchdown, 75 yards, touchdown. They got Kelsey more involved, and Rice became the first Chiefs rookie wide receiver with 100 yards in a game since 2007. I think that was Bo. They played a clean game, the Chiefs. They only had 1 drop, no fumbles, no interceptions there. But now they'll go on the road and play in a tough spot against a team that's playing well, that's young. Also, Eric, that's why this Packers team could really improve in the late points of this year, because they have so many first and second year players out there, or guys that are just getting reps. They could really get a lot better from game to game.
Yeah, I got the Packers here. I actually got this at 7 off the openers right away. Something isn't right with this Chiefs team offensively. They're obviously missing Eric Bieniemy. The offense hasn't looked good. They're the worst scoring team in the second half. Offensive line hasn't looked good. I'm still shocked that the Raiders didn't cover that +10 for us last week. Panthers defensively, especially the defensive line, has looked better each week. They actually dominated that Lions offensive line.
They did, man. And that's a good line. Even with the few pieces missing, they're still not a bad line.
I think, yeah, and I think that line, even with those pieces missing, I think the Lions' offensive line, I think it's better than the Chiefs' offensive line. And I think they're going to be able to get to the backfield, create havoc against Mahomes. Mahomes is a favorite of 3.5 or more, 46%. Road favorite, 3.5 or more, 45, 6.5 or more on the road, 41. We've seen this. I know it's down at 6. It was 6.5 when I made my notes for these. So non-conference dogs getting 6.5 or more in Sunday Night Football, 60% against the spread. Also, like,
Packers go from early Thursday to late Sunday too, right? So they get a lot of extra time off here.
And I really feel like there's a lot of good quote unquote spot plays this weekend. And I think this is another one, just because the Chiefs are coming off beating a divisional rival in the Raiders. I know it's the Raiders, but it's still a divisional dog. And you have the Bills on deck. The Chiefs, with this rivalry they've had with the Bills, are naturally going to be up for the game. Now you're going Sunday to Lambeau. I just think it's a good spot to fade him. Anything 6 or higher, I think you should take. I think Love's going to be able to pick apart the secondary of the Chiefs. We need to remember the Raiders, they were running the ball at ease. So, I mean, I think it's going to be a heavy A.J. Dillon week. Yeah, so I like the Packers here at 6 or higher for me.
Also on the Packers, we move to our final game, Monday Night Football. Bengals at the Jags. Jags are an 8.5-point favorite after a nice win for them. They moved the ball really well through the air. I liked what I've seen from Lawrence the last few weeks. They were number 2 on the week in EPA per dropback, 4th on the week in dropback success rate. They didn't run the ball really at all. The Texans are not bad at defending the run, though, as you were kind of pointing out. The Jags were 30th in rushing success rate, 28th in rushing EPA. They only had 2.8 yards per carry. They got stopped on a 1-yard attempt from the goal line. They were a little sloppy. There were a couple spots where they probably could have scored a little bit more, but overall, I like the way they played. And I really like the way Lawrence played, and the fact that they've been getting Ridley more involved. He had 5 catches for 89 yards and a touchdown. And they are taking more shots down the field. They gained 445 yards, 6.5 yards per play, 7 of 13 on third down. They had a turnover that led to a Texans TD. And then at first and goal that I mentioned, instead of taking the field goal, they tried to go for it with 1 second left to go in the half, and they didn't pick it up. So they got nothing there when they could have gotten a free 3. One thing to keep an eye on, though, whether it matters in this game, winning or losing, I'm not laying the points with Jacksonville here. I'm not telling you to lay the 8.5, but offensive tackle Robinson, who was out to start the year, he's now expected to miss, I think, 3 to 6 weeks. So that could hurt their chances just against better teams. It's just hard for the Bengals with Browning to move the ball down the field. They only had 10 first downs last week. It's not like he had a horrible game, but his biggest pass came on a 39-yard screen play. I think he had 1 pass of 10-plus air yards. He threw a bad interception. There were a couple other throws that could have been intercepted. I think he finished graded quarterback 31 on the week. Only PJ and the Patriots quarterbacks were graded below him. And with him, with the Patriots, with the Giants, with some of these teams that are starting the low level, the quarterback play that's not great right now, everybody's going to stack the box against them. And it's going to be hard to run until these quarterbacks can prove they can hit a pass, they can hit a receiver in one-on-one coverage, because otherwise you're just going to have extra men up front, putting pressure on these guys, making it difficult on them. And I want to get to the Bengals here. I just have a hard time because I couldn't see them run the ball well enough last week. This one's a stay away for me, Eric. I got 5 or 6 other spots on the board.
Too. I really want to get there too. I mean, if this keeps on,
if it gets to 10, if this gets to 10, I'm in.
You know, I'll really get there. Bengals obviously have some defensive issues. Since 2005, this really stood out to me. Home favorites are 46% against the number on Monday Night Football. 46.3% when they're laying 7 or more. I do think this line on this Jags team is a little overvalued. I'm not high on him. Travis Etienne, we've seen he's starting to slow down. He's starting to get banged up. He's starting to get hurt. Lawrence, to me, just hasn't shown me anything. I know he had like a good game, but the throws in my eyes still aren't there. He's not this big generational guy everyone's talking about.
I don't think he's that good. I think the narrative on him is kind of flipped the other way to where I've watched him the last couple of weeks. It felt to me like a couple weeks ago, about 3 weeks ago, he was struggling. And then from what I was reading on a couple of the Jags, sometimes I like to dive into some of the team stuff just to get curious about like injuries, or maybe there's some news or stuff that I might have heard. They were seeming like he was pretty banged up for a while. That wasn't like out there that he was like a massive injury, but he just wasn't as mobile, and it seemed like he was favoring it. I'm a little higher on him leading this team. The only problem is like when you start matching them up, like what can it look like for them? But they might be able to get the number 1 seed based on their schedule. You know, like they may be able to get a bye, and then all of a sudden, if you put yourself in a spot where you don't have to face as many of these good teams like back to back weeks, could they beat a team like, I don't know, like the Bills at home, or a team like the Dolphins at home? Yeah, you know, maybe. They would probably be a dog. I bet you and I in that spot, I bet you and I would be playing the Jags, because I bet you if they were hosting the Dolphins, it would be like Miami -2, and we'd be playing the home dog Jags there off the bye. I'm not quite sure they're as overvalued. Like, this is a line that I would never play. I don't know if the public perception of them is that high. So I'm kind of curious over the next few weeks how they are, because they might be a team as we get closer that I play, because I think they might just be situated well with like not the most difficult schedule and some winnable games here, but nothing really that we dive into on this final game of
this is the biggest number Lawrence has laid in his career.
Wow.
This is the biggest favorite he has ever been in his career.
Wow.
The one thing where we could see this is the Jags run like a pass funnel type system. Everything's funneled in the middle. That's where Jake Barrow likes to target. So maybe he could get into a little bit of rhythm. Lawrence is only 25% against the number as a home favorite. To me, with a team with some offensive line issues, a team that I feel is kind of at their market value, I feel we should be on the Bengals, but I kind of feel like this is going to be a number that continues to grow.
Yeah, I agree with you. The Bengals are the side here, no doubt about it. Nobody wants to play them. And then Jacksonville is coming off of a nice looking win last week, where we both think that like the Texans are a legitimate opponent. They're battling for a playoff spot, but the Jags come off of the nice win versus like 2 weeks ago when they come off of that bad loss. So you're right in that they are more overvalued right now. And this is a big number, as you pointed out, the biggest one that Lawrence has laid. 8.5, and it might even get to double digits. That really wouldn't shock me there. So Eric, you and I will have the winning ticket on Friday. We'll talk some college football. We'll talk some best bets at 6:00 p.m. Eastern time. Then you are also going to have your podcast that comes out a little later on this week. I think you're going to have Chad Cooper on, talk a little CM Punk also, right?
Yep, Chad will be on. We will talk some CM Punk. What does that mean for AEW? What does that mean for WWE? Where's that going to go and everything? My buddy David and I we do this segment where we give out our four best bets. I give out a player prop and a side. He gives out a first half, and a side, and then I build you a DFS lineup. So it'll be a nice little show. Make sure to check that out if anyone's interested.
And then we'll have a NFL betting blitz this weekend. I think we're going to go a little bit early on Sunday, 10 o'clock a.m. Eastern time. That way I can get out and get nice and drunk and tailgate early on for the Rams game. Eric, buddy, we'll be following you at ETOF21 on Twitter and ETOF21 Sports, all other places. Anything else to mention before we get out of here?
No. Let's have a profitable week. Hopefully some dogs can cash, and still trying to figure out Circa. I'll sleep on it tonight, and I'll put my pick in first thing in the morning.
Okay, well, fingers crossed. We wish you the best of luck there. Keep staying alive. Thanks so much, folks, for hanging out with us. If you're listening on the podcast, still have a lot more coming up. If you're following on social media there, make sure to give us both a follow and check out more of the content. We'll have more football content in the next few days leading up to the